All right. Welcome. Good to see you here, Corey, Dr. W. And Kit, always good to see you. Welcome to
See you
our
too, Don.
monthly conversations on escaping your humdrum life or escaping something and moving into your dreams. Today, we're tackling the topic about stress and fear and beyond. So we'll have fun today discussing what stress and fear are like and what we can do about it and hopefully how we can move beyond it. So Kit, would you like to introduce yourself before we jump in?
I'd be glad to. I'm Kit Cassingham with Live in Focused Energy. I'm a longevity coach, and I love working with people who want to say yes to life, who want to live with intention. And first, we start with discovering your values and your why. And then from there, we build your life around what you have rediscovered about yourself. It's a fascinating process and it's great fun and everybody loves it. When you have done that, you can have a mindset that gives you more vibrancy, joy, productivity, and a sense of relevance, which is real important if you're going to live a long time. Oh, heck, it's important even if you're just going to live a short time. So there we go.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Kit. And I'm Don Downs. My company is called RV Business Coach. And I was playing around with where my focus is. And I'm playing with an idea that I'm going to float out here and we'll just see how it lands. But what I do is I create servantpreneurs. Now, what is a servantpreneur? It's someone who is entrepreneurial in spirit and who generates wealth and abundance by creating and selling products that genuinely help other people. So it's the road to a happy life by living outside of yourself and helping others. Most often we do that, like I said, entrepreneurial spirit, creating a business that's going to give you a service or product that you can sell to generate that wealth and abundance. But it wouldn't necessarily have to be your own business. There's lots of ways you can do it in other areas. So that's the direction we're playing with today. This idea is like 3 days old. So you can tell it's well thought out. And probably a good thing to talk about because, when I do this, it's like, wow, there could be a little bit of stress or fear in charting this course. So we can come back to that today as we discuss this.
Yeah.
So
Corey, do you want to give us a quick who you are?
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Sure, yeah. I'm Corey. I'm an environmental consultant living in Ohio. Just here to learn and to listen and participate in the always interesting conversations.
Cool. Well, welcome.
All right. Thank you, Corey. Thank you for tuning in and for tuning in so consistently. Kent, let's start with a little discussion about stress. How much stress and fear rule your life? Do you want to, you have any thoughts about that? I've got a ton, but I'll let you speak first.
I think that most people have a lot of stress and or fear. Sometimes I think there are different words for the same emotion. The same cortisol creating chemistry. And not only does I think that stress and fear puts a real damper on your life, but I know that it creates cortisol and other things that wreak havoc on your health and joy, your sleep. So there's a lot going on. And I have a very unhappy kitty. Excuse me for her commentary.
She's welcome to join us.
Good, because she's going to.
Mine will probably be.
There's a little bit about how I feel about the stress and fear that they rule our lives. I mean, and let me expand. I have stories to tell. I went to Sky Ireland 3 years ago. Some of you call that Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Ireland, but that's way too many syllables, and as an environmentalist, I have to conserve. So it's Sky Ireland. And in Northern Ireland, you can go to the Giant's Causeway. And there is a suspension bridge that spans, I don't know, it's a short distance by my standards, that's several hundred feet or meters above the yards, above the ocean. And it's a suspension bridge. So you have to kind of walk with it. Otherwise, you're thrown off. Neither of my traveling companions would go. They go, no. Well, they both watched me do it. And when I came back, they said, oh, if I'd known it was that easy, I would have done it. There is fear.
And you said, okay, let's do it together.
I'll take your pictures now. There's an example, a light example of how stress or fear can keep you from doing something that would be pleasurable or beneficial. How many times do we not do a business activity or a party because we're afraid of something about it? So there's my 25 cents worth of input to that.
Yeah, I have similar thoughts. I find that it controls us perhaps a lot more than we realize. One thing I've learned on my entrepreneurial journey is how much fear there is around me and in my life. I never really thought of myself as a fearful person, kind of, more of a roll with the punches, keep moving kind of guy. And I think what's happened for me in my entrepreneurial journey isn't so much having more fear, but becoming attuned to it and recognizing it and being able to call it out. Probably because I first started recognizing it in my clients and then realized, well, wait a minute, I'm doing the same thing, right? Because it's always easier to coach other people. But that recognition where a lot of times it's like, oh, well, what's holding me back here is this little thing called fear. And then you decide, am I going to be brave and do it anyway? Or is that a legitimate concern? I'm going to, try to do something to mitigate the risk and make it easier to deal with the potential downfall. But I do find not only in business, but pretty much all walks of life, lots and lots and lots of stuff gets driven by fear. I think a lot of our political landscape, if you stop and listens to the conversations, it's based on fear. Fear of what the other party might do, fear of what I might lose if the other party gets in control, fear of what might happen. I think once you recognize that fear and realize that it's controlling you, there's potentially the opportunity to do something about it. So I think we'll talk about that more a little as we talk along today. Kit, what are some examples of fear you see in your longevity journey and your longevity clients? What kinds of things do you see cropping up?
Interesting variety. There's the group of people who fear they won't live long enough, and the group of people who are afraid they'll live too long. In January, when we were traveling for a convention, stopped to see friends along the way to and from the conference location. And everywhere I went, I asked people, how long do you want to live? I was surprised at the number of people saying, oh, my dad died at 85. That's all the longer I can live. Oh, what if you could live longer? No, I can't. So they were real set. So there was an interesting fear there that I decided not to try and untangle. I wasn't there to coach them. I was there to have lunch or dinner with them. So there's that fear there, and there's stresses of, do I have enough money to live beyond, what's the average death age right now? 85 or something? 75? I don't know.
I don't know. It's a good number.
Well, so do I have enough money to support me in the way I want to live that long? What could I do to make more money so I could live longer if I wanted to, or live more comfortably that long? The stress of daily life can really get to people and make them more anxious, which I think is too bad, because anxiousness gets your stomach all upset.
Yeah, that's true. As you said that, the fear of dying, the fear of not dying, what I've always said is I want to live until I stop living. And, the fear there would be that I'm continuing to be alive after I've stopped living. So, spending 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years in an incapacitated state, which may or may not mean unconscious. You might be alive, but getting up out of your chair and going to the kitchen is such a huge issue that you can't do it on your own. And, that just doesn't seem like would be a fun existence. So, definitely that fear of not dying when it's past time to go enters in there for me. And then also, like you said, the financial thing, right? The longer you live, the more you need to have put away, or the longer you need to work or something. So I've totally rethought retirement. I used to think I would retire at 55, and now I'm like, as long as I still like what I'm doing, as long as I'm still good at what I'm doing, why would I quit? But at some point there's that, as long as I'm still good about it, what happens if the brain starts slowing down and I'm not able to make those moves anymore? That would definitely be an area that I'm concerned about. An
Don,
area I see a lot of, go ahead.
Part of my coaching is helping people understand the formula that goes into making longevity. Longevity is like a recipe, and it's comprised of equal amounts of lifespan and health span and joy. We think of it as lifespan. So what you just said, I don't want to be decrepit. Well, you just ran out of health span when you started being decrepit, and the lifespan could continue. And so, all right, now I've got you with your health and your lifespan equal, but you're not having fun for some reason. So let's sprinkle lots of joy in there. And now we've got a delicious recipe of longevity to go with.
That's awesome.
And
I like that
people
model.
are afraid of the different elements. They're afraid that at our age, we're not supposed to be silly. That's what keeps you young, is being silly.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, true. Some of what I see in
you.
my clients is really interesting because, I used to work with a lot of people who wanted to go full-time RVing. And it's a really interesting thing that they make this decision. I want to quit my job. I want to go out and do this new thing. I'm going to live a totally different lifestyle, a more minimal lifestyle. It's this dream of how you want to live. And then it comes time to do it. And this fear clutches in and goes, what am I about to do? I'm going to walk off a good paying job. I'm going to, get rid of 3/4 of my possessions. I'm going to be crammed into this small space. What if gas prices go through the roof? And so, it's really interesting when you see you have that dream and then you see the fear coming up and grappling with your dream. So that's one I see a lot. There's other fears in the segment, like buying an RV. What if I buy my dream RV and 3 months down the road, it turns out that all the features I thought I wanted don't really add anything and maybe get in the way. I see people, camp kitchens is a great example. Everybody wants one of those outdoor kitchens. And then everyone I know, but about 2 people who have one, say, I never used the thing, and I sure wish I had the space this thing is taken up on the inside of the RV instead of on this kitchen on the outside. So you get into that situation. It's like, well, this isn't where I want to be, not the RV I want to have, but I'm totally upside down on my loan, and I'm not going to be able to make any changes for a while. So there's fears of making mistakes like that. There's fears about safety. What if I'm in a remote location? Am I safe? Could someone try to rob me, kill me, or whatever? So, again, I find it really fascinating that we have these dreams, these big, wild dreams we want to do. And the closer we get to doing them, the more those fears come up and start making us double clutch and second guess it.
Don, a couple of years ago, I led a series of classes called Transform Fear into Action. We had some fabulous conversations around the kinds of things that raised fear. And I was surprised that a few people said, I don't know why I'm taking this class. I don't have any fear. But then they would proceed to tell us about the things that stressed them out. And that's what raised my awareness that maybe if I'd had a class on transform stress into action, that those people would have had something to share. So I think it could be interesting in this call for us to explore what some synonyms for fear and stress are. And I'm going to throw it at Corey and say, Corey, do you have any ideas on this? And if not, don't worry, Don and I'll take over. Don't be afraid, Corey.
Well, so synonyms you're saying for fear and stress, right?
Yeah, like stress and fear are synonyms of each other, maybe?
Yeah. Well, so, what I don't know if it's a synonym so much, but what I was hearing when you guys were describing your ideas or what your clients have experienced in terms of fear is unknown, right? Like most of this revolves around not knowing what's going to happen. If you could control it, it wouldn't be scary, right? That's my
a good
thought.
point.
Like that. I like that a lot. I'm going to add that to my list. Thank you.
Right. Happy birthday.
The Dalai Lama says about fear, if you can't change it or affect it, don't worry. If you can change it or affect it, worry. So worrying doesn't help, but we all do it, right?
We do. Yep. Yeah, like Corey said, a lot of it is that fear of the unknown. What I've seen a lot of is a fear of failure. And I particularly see that in the entrepreneurial business community and in, coaching startups, that it's really scary to make that step. And, what if I fail? And, when you say, well, statistically, you probably will the first 3 or 4 times you start it, but you'll learn enough that you'll have a successful one down the road, is not very comforting. And with business, there's that fear of the failure about the business itself, but every single step along the way, you got to put yourself out there. And, there's the fear that goes with it, but the fear is largely like a fear of rejection, a fear of making a fool of yourself, a fear of what other people are going to think about you. And as I worked through a lot of that, I came to realize that that's like 90% of what all fear is. A lot of that fear about the, what's going to happen in the future that I don't know comes back to, what if it makes me look like a fool, and what will people think about me if I do this and it doesn't work? And especially around the business community, there's a lot of that. But I see maybe not all fear, but a lot of fear in general life really seems to roll back into that fear of embarrassing myself, whether it's to other people or to myself, but that fear of, gee, I did something and it didn't work. Now what?
So a little bit of a challenge, a little bit of an expansion. When I was a bed and breakfast coach consultant, I was leading a seminar at a bed and breakfast outside of Boulder, and it snowed. And I had an attorney coming to talk to us about ADA. And I know that these innkeepers were very proud of their early adoption of ADA laws. They built them into the inn before the law became law. So, and I had told the attorney, no problem, you can get in. Well, he could. He had to roll up the ramp. And he was disabled. I forgot that part. He had to roll up the ramp, which they had not shoveled snow off of. So he rolled snow into the inn. He was angry, stressed, fearful that they hadn't accommodated him completely. And they were angry that they'd been caught not being attentive or really dedicated to their ADA compliance. And they scolded him for bringing snow in. So there were a lot of interesting stress and fear activities going on in that one situation. Innkeepers can be fearful that guests won't show up, they'll show up late, that they'll bring a dog or a child when there are no dogs or children allowed. Life is full of opportunity to feel stress or fear. And I'll put it out there that it didn't help. If you find you have a fear, let's stick with innkeepers, then come up with policies, guidelines, actions you can take to mitigate that fear. You don't want anybody tracking snow in your house? Remove the snow, have a place that they can brush it off outside or placed just inside the door. I never had a dog or a child at the inn I managed that was a problem. I had a lot of adults who were problems. So I thought about making the rule 2-year-olds are welcome with parents if the parents are well trained. But it wasn't my inn, so I didn't get to instigate that. Corey, keep that in mind should you ever have children.
All right.
Yeah, that would be interesting. So yeah, that's an interesting observation, Kit. And to just play with that a little bit, that you kind of merged into talking about anger. And it seems to me like anger and fear may well be related. I'm having a little bit of trouble putting my finger on exactly how, but I do see when people are acting out of fear, they also are exhibiting a lot of anger. So I think there's some kind of connection there. What do you think?
I've seen people get angry and really yell and scream and when you talk to them, you find out that they have a fear underlying that, and the anger is what they're comfortable showing. Because men aren't afraid. Men get angry. Is a sexist example, and I didn't make that rule up. I've just heard people say it.
Right.
But and going back to my Skyland example, the suspension bridge, people were anxious about that. They had a fright of the movement, a horror of falling.
And that's perfectly normal, by the way.
No, it's not.
As you were describing the bridge, I
people
was noting my palms were starting to sweat. So, that fear of heights is perfectly a normal reaction.
There's a playground in Japan I can tell that you don't want to go to. Where
No,
you're
I've seen pictures of it. No.
You've heard me talk about it, but Corey, have you heard me talk about this, Corey?
Mm-mm.
You're high above a canyon and you're strapped in, so you're not going to fall, but your brain doesn't quite connect that. So you have to walk from plank to plank. Some of them are suspended, free, so they're like swings.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are attached, but there's still a gap between the planks.
I think I could do it.
it.
I've done the suspension bridge at Giant Causeway.
And you lived to tell us about it.
Right.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Did you leave people on the mainland who saying, "Oh, I could have done that if I'd known it was that easy"?
Right.
No, but it was me and my roommate, so we both just went ahead and did it.
Oh, so y'all made it
My
swing.
roommate didn't go. My roommate didn't go with me.
Oh.
What I find funny about my fear of heights is I think back when I was a young kid and we would, take a hike up to a fire tower, and my brother and I would race up the fire tower, and our parents would be petrified as we're just running up the steps of this thing. And of course, think about it, there's gap between the steps. So they're afraid we'll trip and fall and crash to our deaths or whatever. And we were fine. And then as a college graduate, I had a job where I needed to go up and install something on a fire tower. And I was literally on my hands and knees crawling one step at a time. It was like, take a step and take a few breaths and take another step and take a few breaths. And so somewhere between, age 5 and 6 and 20 something changed. And I started having trouble processing heights. And, it's not really a fear of heights. It's a fear of falling. A fear of falling to your death. But somewhere along the way, I developed that, and I'm still not totally over it.
Well, and Don, I made a joke that heights are not an issue, but there are indeed safety issues that raise fear in us. It could be heights. It could be wildlife. I have a friend and neighbor. If you live up on my mesa, you're my next door neighbor. And she's afraid that bear could get her, or mountain lion could get her. And there's no recent history of attacks in this area of wildlife on humans, other than maybe some bees or wasps or something, but they don't count in this particular conversation. Though if you're allergic to them, yeah, there's a concern. Reasonable.
Well, she may not be afraid of these animals. She may just be exercising good common sense. That reminds me of the joke. I'm not superstitious, but some things are just plain common sense, like not walking under a ladder on Friday the 13th.
With the black cat in front of you, yeah. No, in this particular case, I think it's not common sense. When we walked a 10K walk in her neighborhood with 100 other people, with a big staff making sure we turned at the right places and stuff, she carried bear spray with her, just in case a bear jumped out. That's not common sense, because bear are shy of people. So,
although this year, at least in the East, we've had a big crop of bear, and they've been everywhere. They're coming down into the cities. Asheville and Gatlinburg have both been publishing pictures of bears roaming the streets. And
but have the bear attacked anybody?
No, not if people leave them alone.
Or now, when I was at my cabin outside of Boulder in August, a guy had a bear rear up and go, "Ah!" Scared the guy. And the dog said, "I'm out of here," and he beelined up the road. But the guy only threatened the bear because the guy was eating his raspberries. the man was eating the bear's raspberries.
Bear's
The
raspberries.
he had to protect him. So,
Interesting.
so
But you do bring up a point though, wildlife, there's a concern, whether we overdo it or not, there's a safety concern there. There's a lot of areas in life where, as you said a minute ago, fear and safety kind of blend a little bit, like, do I need to lock my house doors when I go into the house at night or when I go away? Here in the city, the answer is most definitely, yeah, it's probably a good idea. What other safety things could I be doing to, that are common sense, good things to do, and which of those are we overblowing out of a reasonable or unreasonable fear about it?
yeah, I mean, we all have to walk that line ourselves, but I urge every one of us to be conscious, pay attention to the emotion that's rising up and deal with that. I don't like horror films. I know that they're just movies, but the adrenaline and the cortisol that the knotted stomach really get me. I don't enjoy that. So I choose not to watch it. That's okay. I mean, that's not altering my life too much. It's a change I'm willing to put up with.
Right. It's interesting. And I think back on this fear related to safety. And I go, does that fit my model that what we're afraid of is really fear of embarrassing ourselves? And in some ways it does. I mean, in some ways there's this fear that, the longevity fear, I'm going to die, I'm going to get killed, whatever. But there's also, if I go away and I don't lock my house doors and someone comes in and takes half my stuff, the response of people is going to be, why didn't you lock your doors? And then, it reflects back on that embarrassment thing. So I think there still could be some tie in there, although not nearly as strong as most of the business examples tie back.
And I think that that's somewhat simplistic. I would say if that's your friend's reaction to you getting robbed, you got jerky friends. You need to change them. They should be empathetic to you. Like, oh, Don, here, take my extra set of pans or sheets or whatever, whatever got stolen. As if people break into houses to steal sheets. I know.
Right. Yeah, have an extra TV.
So I don't know. I do think, I think that fear is more complex. So if we think of it as an emotion, stress or fear, my studies have taught me that an emotion lasts no longer than 90 seconds unless you grab onto it and clutch it tight to you and make it yours. If you have the presence of mind and the intention to stand back, keep your hands off, and just watch the emotion, experience it a little bit to see what message it has for you. But don't hold on to it, because then when you become an older person, be it 16, 26, 96, you're still going to be dealing with that emotion. And the fear that its situation is long past. So at that point, it's not the situation that's scaring you, it's the emotion that you have nurtured and made your own. And I'm going to say, short circuit that, cut that short, and don't hold on to it. Don't make it yours.
Yeah, that's interesting. It makes me think about the meditation stuff that I've done, where you sit and you observe thoughts and emotions. And, that makes a lot of sense when that emotion clutches in, to sit back and go, okay, it's here. I'm just going to sit with it. I'm not going to engage, but I'm not going to push it away. I'm just going to sit here and observe it. And, if you do that, like you said, probably 90 seconds, and it's going to move on and something else will come in. But, it's when you engage with it and wrestle with it that we a lot of times we'll try to go, oh, I don't want this emotion, I'm going to push it away, I'm going to shut it down. But that doesn't really work. It really just kind of gets shoved down a little bit, and it'll find another opportunity to bubble up, most likely.
It festers when you shove it down, and then it comes back bigger and uglier and messier than before. So just deal with it right then and there.
Yep.
Or maybe say, all right, I'm going to deal with you in a minute. I'm going to set you here. I'm going to breathe, get calm, and then I'll deal with you. Or I'll finish this situation, and then I'll deal with you, fear or stress. We keep falling back on the term as fear when stress is the same thing.
Yeah.
We put stress on our lives when we put too much on our plates, too many things to do. As a minor example of what stress builds.
Right. So Corey, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish the question.
Now go ahead. I was going to prompt you, but if you're ready to talk, I'll shut up and let you talk.
Oh, well, I mean, it's, I guess, a little bit of my thought, but more of like something I've been wondering as we're talking about it too is, you know, like we're saying, well, fear and stress are very related. Obviously, they are. But I think there are instances where stress is a positive thing. It's a motivator, right? It doesn't always give you the bad emotions or the adverse health effects. I don't know if that could be said of fear. I don't know what you both think. I mean, I haven't heard a lot of situations where fear has been described positively. I'm really glad I was scared of that. Okay, Kit.
Yeah, Kit.
Fear will keep you from walking into the bear's cave.
Okay,
that's
true,
what I was thinking.
That's
If
a
you're sitting by your car and a
positive
bear's charging, fear will make you get in. So,
right.
What did you say, Corey?
I said, but fear, I guess, what I mean is it's not associated with any positive emotion. Like stress, you know, you could use stress as a motivator, like we said, and it can be a benefit. I don't know, except for in the fact that, yes, it might save your life. Fear isn't a positive emotion, or is it?
well, I think that's it, right? Fear can save your life. It can keep you from walking into a dangerous situation. So I guess I would argue that's a positive side of fear.
So, but Corey, I've heard you say a couple things. It's a positive thing, positive emotion. I agree. I don't know that fear is a positive emotion ever. And just to stick on that line, I don't know that stress is a positive emotion. I know it can get you to do good things. It'll get you to finish your advanced degree. We have stress when we get married. We have stress when we have babies. We have stress when we buy new homes. And those are all good things. But maybe if we approach them without the stress, they'd be even better. Maybe.
Right.
So I'm just because I like to be obstreperous, I'm going to say, I don't think stress has a good emotion. We have accepted it as normal. And I'm here to say, maybe it doesn't have to be. I put Don to sleep. He's thinking so hard.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I mean, on the one hand, I agree stress seems to be a negative. But on the other hand, I agree with Corey that you can channel that stress into something positive. You know, deadlines cause stress, but deadlines also cause things to get done. You know, if it weren't for the last minute, nothing would ever get done. So you can channel that stress into completion. You know, if you're stressed about the upcoming deadline for your advanced degree, use that stress to get you motivated to work on that advanced degree. Now, maybe that's not stress isn't a positive emotion. Maybe at that point you're releasing the stress and developing a different mindset, if you will, to deal with it. You know, and I'm thinking the same thing with the fear, right? You kind of need to look at your fear and go, is this legit? Or is this me making something out of nothing? You know, a bear is running at me at 30 miles an hour. Is that a legitimate problem? Yeah. You know, I'm afraid to send this tweet because somebody may make a negative comment about it. Is that a legitimate problem? Probably not. So, you know, I think that with both of those emotions, we do kind of need to look at them and go, where's this coming from? And
Right.
What do I need to do with it?
And I'm going to stand on my little soapbox and continue to say, I don't think approaching life with stress, fear can be healthy to keep you out of dangerous situations. Okay. But fear of most of what we are afraid of, we don't need to be. We can have a healthy respect for it. And I'll maintain that you can set your deadlines, your goals, your events, and not let stress get involved. You can keep a mindset that will allow you to stay chill and enjoy the process. You hear people talk about how miserable their wedding was. You're so glad it was done. Well, there's an example of the stress ruined the event for them. And if they just chilled.
See, my theory
You
on
could have had a
weddings
good
is if everything went smoothly, it wouldn't count and you would have to do it over.
You were so negative. You're a pessimist.
No, it's just an acceptance that this is a big event. There's 1,000 moving pieces. Some of them aren't going to fall into place, and that's okay. You're not the
Yeah,
first
but that
person to have
doesn't-
a wedding that this happened to. Just roll with it, you know?
So things
that's what I
fall
mean by
apart.
that.
But why feel stressed? You know it's going to fall apart. Here or there, a little thing's going to fall through the cracks. Why stress about it? If you can't change it, don't worry or stress. If you can change it, don't worry or stress. Don't stress.
Right.
If the bride doesn't show up, oh well, didn't he have to get divorced later? Don't stress.
You might not if she didn't show up.
Exactly. If she didn't show up, then if it wasn't the right relationship. So
Right.
no point in stressing about it.
So, Kit, a minute ago, both of us in talking about it brought up the word mindset, saying that
Uh-oh.
there's a mindset around stress and fear or dealing with stress and fear. Do you think stress and fear are a mindset in and of themselves? And do you think you can develop mindsets that will overcome them?
My simple answer is yes. I think we get in the habit of allowing a certain mindset, be it stress or fear or anger, to rule our lives. I think we might be better off if we allowed the mindset or habit of joy and positivity, acceptance to rule our lives. So it's a very simplistic answer.
Right.
It's not necessarily, it's not easily done. It does take focus, intention, and practice. 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Right.
One step
Just because it's
sideways
simple
and-
doesn't mean it's easy. And there are
I
lots
think
of
I just tried to
examples, I
say
think,
that.
in life of that. But I tend to agree with you. I think that I mean, there's probably external stimuli that cause our stress and maybe trigger a fear. But I think there's a mindset in dealing with that stimulus once it happens. Stephen Covey always talked about there's a gap between stimulus and response in which we can choose how to respond. So we can respond instead of react. And I
We
think there's a
can
mindset
pause.
around deciding to do that. Right. So I agree with you. It sounds like we're downplaying it and making it super simple, and it's not. It's something that takes work to develop. But I do believe it's possible. I do think it is entirely possible. And part of it is recognizing when it's there and identifying it so that you can step back and decide how to deal with it.
I have a counterpoint to that, though.
Good. I was going to ask you for one.
I mean, I think that I certainly agree. You can change your mindset, and I think there's a lot of merit in doing that to help you alleviate a lot of the stress and fear that we feel. But I think it depends a lot on the magnitude of the event or circumstance causing the stress. So, to Don's example of, I'm going to send a tweet and someone might get upset and my societal status will be lowered. Like, okay, well, that's an easy mindset to address. It's like, okay, well, if I don't care as much and I don't really give much weight to what people think, that's not going to bother me. But, if you consider a larger scale circumstance, like, you have 3 kids that you're trying to feed and you lose your job and you can't afford the mortgage on your house and you're going to be out on the street. And, I don't think any sort of mindset change is going to change the stress you would feel in that sort of situation. You can do all you want to stay positive, but I still think it'll be a stressor.
And just to have a conversation with you about your point, you're about to send this, I'm going to say 100-character tweet. You've got more space, but you're going to keep it to 100 characters. And you recognize that you could lose your job from this. Like the actress in Mandalorian who did something or other and lost her job. Ruined the series, I'm sure. But anyway, you stop and think, I've got 3 kids, a house, and a wife or spouse or whatever to take care of. I don't think this tweet is important enough to endanger their comfort. I'm not going to send that tweet. So that's how you would not stress about it. That's that pause that Don talked about between stimulus and action. You had the stimulus, you pause, you go, bad idea. And so that's where you saved yourself. Now, if I come along and go, look at this really cool tweet that Corey has ready to go, I think I'll hit send. Now you have stress because that idea is out there when you were just about to erase it.
So are you suggesting that the dividing line is things in and out of your control? Because before it was in my control, I can choose to send it. If someone walks up and hits send for me, it is out of my hands. It was something that I didn't choose that has been inflicted upon me.
Although your response to that is totally in your control. So, you know, you at that point, it's like, well, I have to go into damage control. how, you know, I can do nothing and let the world crumble around me, or I can go into damage control and try to salvage this. And I was thinking that too in your example about the, you know, you've lost your job and, you know, you've got 3 kids and you don't know how you're going to pay the mortgage. Definitely a stressor. You can sit there and waddle all over that stress and let it pool all over you and feel bad for yourself and make yourself a nervous wreck and fall into depression and whatever. Or you can take a mindset that says, I'm going to figure out how to get out of this. How am I going to solve this problem? And, you know, and start looking at, okay, I've got to find income. Is that a job? Do I start a business? Do I start a side hustle? You know, I
might have to get 3 jobs.
Yeah. You know, can I start stocking shelves somewhere to get some income? And, you know, while I'm still applying for a job as a nuclear physicist or, you know, whatever. So I think there's still a mindset, I believe, even when things are totally out of or they seem totally out of your control, because, you know, Stephen Covey always talked about the circle of influence and the circle of concern. You got to focus on that circle of influence. What do I have control over, and work on that? And I think there's definitely a mindset about that.
What you just described, Don, is channeling negative stress in a positive way, right? That's what we were just saying. Using the stress to motivate your actions and not letting it consume you.
Yeah, you can certainly look at it that way. You know, you could also look at it as I'm releasing the stress and I am starting down this problem solving road. You know, but even the second way, there's definitely an argument that problem solving road came about because of your reaction, or your response rather, to the stressful event.
In May, I was out of town. I was 6 to 10 hours away from the house and heard about a forest fire that was 6 miles away, which doesn't seem like a lot, unless you get a wind pushing it, and then it's a heartbeat away. I got a little stressed and I go, you can't do what you can. So I called my cat sitter. I called my good friend in town and said, okay, here's the situation. If the fire gets closer, would you swoop in, save the cats? Here's where the extra cat litter and food is, and take them somewhere. And my friend said, we'll put them in the trailer. We'll put the trailer in the trees in town, which isn't anywhere near the fire, and you're good. And the cat sitter's landlord said, wow, in this situation, if you need to bring those cats here, do. So I did everything I could. I had 2 good people on it, and I chilled. I told a friend about it. She goes, well, there's nothing you can do about it, so just sit down and be quiet. And go, oh, there's a lot I can do about it. And I did. And now I'll sit down and be quiet. So there's an example of stress. And to have half the house gets destroyed, bummer, but my cats mean a lot to me. So that was my concern. And there was a time that I would have really stressed and fretted and been very anxious, and probably that would have blocked me from thinking of solutions, which is one reason I say, avoid the stress and the fear. Let your brain be clear. And with a clear mind, you can come up with solutions. So Corey, now that I've tweeted your deep, dark secret or whatever that's going to get you fired, you can go to the boss and say, this crazy lady, she thought she was being funny, and I was just about to erase this. deep apologies. What can I do to make amends to you? Who else? And then figure out who else you need to apologize, starting with your wife and kids. I'm working on fixing this. Don't worry. So you have done everything you can. If you got a good boss, which hopefully you will, he'll say, man, you ought to kick that lady out of your life. And okay, here's what I want you to do regarding the tweet. And I'm going to put you on suspension. You know, you keep working, but I'm going to be watching you. I don't know what your boss is going to say other than get rid of that crazy lady in your life. But too bad you stuck with me. So, all right.
Yeah. And I think that's the
sounded my-
mindset shift, is to look at the stress and say, okay, I have this stimulus, and then to go into problem solving mode. What am I going to do about it? I'm not just going to sit here and worry about it. Some element of this is under my control. What is that element, and what can I do?
Yeah.
Now, Kit, I know you have some tools in your toolkit to help manage stress and fear. Do you want to talk about those? We're in our closing moments here.
Do you want me to close, or do you want me to talk about my tool?
Talk about your tools first.
Okay. I mentioned the class I taught a few years ago on transforming fear. I taught my clients, my students, a very cool tool. I call it capo. And for the music people in the audience, a capo is a device that you strap onto a stringed instrument. You probably have seen one on a guitar neck. And in my layman's terms, it raises the vibrations of the music the guitar puts out. So CAPO is an acronym that stands for curious, accept and adapt, present, and open. So when you learn to use those 5, guess it's CAAPO, elements, you can learn to manage your stress and your fear. And we spent several weeks teaching and testing and working on that. And it was fascinating the ways people used it. One of the guys in the class was a volunteer at an animal shelter. And one day in the middle of the class, he went into the shelter and there was a new dog there. And it just lunged at the cage, saying, I'm going to rip your head off, give me your face and I'll take it too. And all kinds of nasty dog things were going to be done. And this guy said, I think that dog is afraid. So he applied curiosity to help him overcome his reaction of, I think I'll get out of here, so that he could stay present with the dog. He accepted the dog's fear. He adapted to it by changing his approach. And he continued staying present and open to the possibility the dog would allow him to get close, which the dog ultimately did. I thought, wow, what a brilliant use of the tool, which I hadn't anticipated. So I've made a verb out of the acronym. So he capoed the dog. So,
yeah, and I
so
will say
again,
from my experience, I took Kit's course, what, about a year ago? You offered it and I took it, a year and a half
I don't
maybe.
know if it's a year or two, but whatever. Yeah.
And I found capo to be a really helpful tool, you know, as the fear comes up, to be able to have a process. I'm a big process guy. How am I going to deal with this? You know, we start with the curiosity and looking at what's causing this. What can I do about it? What options do I have? You know, accepting and adjusting. Was that it?
Accept and adapt.
Accept and adapt.
When
How
you
can I
took it, it was
adapt as a
just
result
adapt.
of this stressor?
Yeah.
You know, and it's a nice tool to help you, one, develop the mindset, and two, to walk you through a solutions oriented approach. You know, to move from sitting in a having a pity party over whatever the fear or the stress is, to being able to identify what about this is in my control and what's my best response to it. So it's a really useful tool, which I invite everyone to get to know better.
Don, I had an opportunity to use capo spring of, it doesn't matter. At one point, Randy and I did a corporate getaway and we were out walking and a man approached us in a very aggressive manner. it scared me. And we continued on our walk, and then some other guy was just sitting there, and my fear was reflected onto him, and so he scared me. And I said, I this is too weird, I got to go back to the hotel room. I consciously worked my way through capo to help me release all the fear, and I was pleased. My accept and adapt was, this isn't as, in the moment was this, it doesn't feel like a safe place, let's leave. And that helped. So I didn't apply all of capo at the time, but once we got back to the hotel room, I did. Okay, I like this. I wish I hadn't been afraid then, but I don't know enough karate to defend us. So anyway,
Yeah. It's one of those,
like, I don't know any.
the adapt. This isn't a safe place. I'm going to leave it and then finish capoing later. Sometimes you got to move fast.
I'm present to leaving. I'm open to leaving. Yeah.
That's right.
So.
All right, we're coming up on the top of the hour. Corey, you have any other final thoughts or questions about fear, stress, capo?
Not really. I like the conversation though, and I like the idea of capo. I'll have to keep it in mind and try it out, see how it works for me.
So Kit, tell us how we can learn more about capo.
I am reviving the class, though I'm not doing the 6-week version of it. I am doing a 2-hour workshop starting on October 26th. I actually have about a dozen sessions scheduled between October 26th and the middle of December. I figured that as we go into the holidays and the new year and everything, that we have a lot of stress and fear. And based on what my students and clients have experienced, capo can help people overcome that. So, and I'll leave this in the notes on the various places where I post this, so that you can take the class, and it's called Face It to Change It. And it's a $47 class or workshop. It will be interactive. I like doing interactive. So the website is, you can go to my website and click on courses and see that one, and another one that I'm doing that's free called Energize Me, again, to help you get into the holidays. So I've got that, those two to go through.
That's awesome. And I will say, I highly recommend, if you haven't been through this process of learning capo, definitely recommend it. It's definitely helpful in dealing with your fears and your stress, and developing that mindset we were talking about of becoming a problem solver rather than a pity parter. So with that, I guess we will wrap up. Once again, I'm Don Downs with RV Business Coach. I would invite you to join me for a virtual coffee, and let's just talk this stuff over. Questions about stress or fear or starting a business, or want to give me your thoughts about what a servantpreneur is, whether you think it's brilliant or the dumbest thing you've ever heard of. At this point, it's early and I'm looking for feedback. So, and you can join me at rvbusinesscoach.com/coffee. And, like I said, it's like 30 minutes of virtual coffee. I'm not trying to sell anything, just getting to know you better. Kit?
Cool. Well, I'm still Kit Cassingham with Live in Focused Energy, and I'm a longevity coach. I love working with people who want to be engaged in their life energetically and without stress and fear, because stress and fear shorten your life, basically. Understanding your values and your why are really good foundational pieces to help you understand who it is you are in this world, how you want to be seen, how you want to interact with it, and start building a lifestyle that will support your longevity, remembering that longevity is lifespan, health span, and joy in equal amounts.
All right. I guess that wraps it up for today. Corey, thank you for attending. Thanks to everyone who watches this on replay. And we will see you next month when, Kit, do you remember what our topic is next month?
Something about entering the holidays.
Oh yeah, the holidays. Surviving the holidays. We may come up with a catchier title, but the general idea will be surviving the holidays. So that will be in November, just before Thanksgiving, to give us time to whatever we figure out to deal with to survive the holidays.
We'll
Hope
have
to see you
gotten
then.
through that Halloween holiday.
That's true. We'll be through that one.
All right. Thanks for coming,
All right.
everyone.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye.
guys. Bye.